Alright, ECE 173. This week we were asked to write 3 programs using functions, the first 2 of which deal with inputting a number and then the output having the absolute value of that number, the ceiling value I should say, and then the floor value. And I also should have mentioned this, it could be a real number, so pretty much anything. So starting off with these declaration of functions, one to deal with the absolute value, one to deal with the ceiling value, and one to deal with the floor value. So afterwards, starting off with the main function and getting the declaration of variables and the number input from the user. Then afterwards, all of these values are going to be sent to these functions, I should say, or these values are going to be obtained from these functions. So here we move into these, and then this one is the absolute value one, so I don't know why I said average, I'll change that later. So if the number is less than 0, then multiply by -1. So if it's negative, just turn it positive and then return the number. Here, this one deals with the ceiling value, so if you start out by storing this temporary value here as the integer version of the number, so if it was like 17.5, you'd store it as 17, and then it enters this if statement here. So if, for example, it was 17.5 is greater than 17, which it is, you increase the value of that one and send it back. And then the same just works for this one, but the opposite. And then I'll show that one, but after I talk about this one, just so because they'll have the same output in the end. So declaration of variables, and then, oops, need to go up a little bit. So this time we want to do it all in one function, so we have to use pointers. So here we have the declaration of that function, and then the same stuff as before. And then we call this function so we can start working with it. And here we have the pointers, so we can send all that info back and print it. So, like I said, pretty much the same stuff as last time, but actually used a different way of finding the ceiling values and the floor values, but in the end it all will work out to be the same. And then it'll just send it back and the function, or print these and end everything. So I'll run these here. I'll do 17.5 since that was the example I used. And then you got 17.5 is the absolute value since it's not negative. The ceiling value is going to be 18, which makes sense because that's larger than this, and then the floor value is going to be 17. Once again, makes sense since it's smaller than that. Then we'll go over here and do the same thing. 17.5, and you got 17.5, 18, and 17. So same process, or same ending, different process, I'll say. Then here I'll do negative 17.5, and then it'll be 17.5 for the absolute value since you multiplied it by -1 pretty much. Ceiling value, negative 17, and floor value, negative 18. Oh, excuse me. So then the last question was to find a whole bunch of information about a random array, so the number of positive numbers, the number of negatives, the number of zeros, the number of evens, and the number of odds. Once again, using just pointers. So the declaration of that function, and then inside there was this random number generator, random array generator from lab 7 it was. And then after that, just declaring all these variables as 0, because I'll explain once I get down into the function. and then it'll start the function, go through here, and since they're all set as 0, as we enter this for loop here, which will go from 0 to till it's less than the size of the function, or the array, which is 30, so it'll go from 0 to 29 for all the elements of the array. And it'll run through all these if and else statements and find all that info. So if L of I is greater than 0, then that'll be add 1 for the positive. But if it was less than 0, it'd add 1 for the negative. If it was 0, it would add 1 for the 0. If it's even, so if the modulus of 2 is 0, then it'll add 1 for the even, and then if not, it'll add 1 for the odd. So in the end, you'll get all that info, it'll send it back here, and then it'll run through all of these, and then just give you the number of positives, negatives, zeros, evens, and odds. So that'll be everything. Had to jump to the online version because it wasn't working in here. So yeah, thank you very much for listening, and have a good one. Print it out.